The greatest cartoon characters of all time, classic television, exciting football in the spring. This is the USCFL Network, celebrating 40 years of excellence.
Let's get ready to rumble!
YouTube, the American Association of Animation and First and 10 Productions presents the USCFL pregame show. An inside look into the United States Cartoon Football League and a preview of tonight's featured game, right here on the USCFL Network, presented by Robbie Graham.
Greetings, cartoon and football fans, and especially fans of She-Ra. This is Robbie Graham of the USCFL Network as we continue the new She-Ra's Overtime Challenge. I have to give this intrepid heroine her props. She has survived halfway through this mini tournament. She has scored 37 out of a possible 56 points. She's done better here than at this stage of the episode runoff, but there are only 6 more rounds left, and her margin of error keeps eroding. This could be it for her unless she gets a good score. As we go into this crucial 8th round, the new She-Ra has a score of 116 points with a minus 44-point differential and a margin of error of 4 points. If she doesn't get at least 6 points for this upcoming round, it's over. Remember, you on YouTube can help keep her going by giving us your comments and scores. If you don't participate, we can't change the score. And now, here are our reviews and scores for rounds 8 and 9. Once again, as a reminder, we are doing these episodes in chronological order. So therefore, episode 8 of season 4 will be referred to as episode 34. And for round 8, the episode is called Boys Night Out. And here's my senior moderator's take on this episode. He wrote, and I quote, "As usual, there were two main storylines. The rebellion is forced to retreat when its counterattack to retake Mermista's kingdom fails. Adora continues to browbeat Glimmer for failing to share her load with the other princesses. Meanwhile, Glimmer questions Adora's value to the rebellion, which has seen more losses than victories since she switched sides. Mermista is so brokenhearted that she retreats to a bathtub to wallow in her misery. Seahawk persuades Bo and Swiftwind to join him for a boys' night out. They end up in a bar singing songs about friendship. When Seahawk's true plan is revealed, he has arranged for one of his pirate buddies to pretend kidnap him in the expectation that the princesses will reunite to come to their rescue. The plans go awry when a different group of pirates, led by Captain Scurvy, Seahawk's old commander, hijack the plan with the intention of selling the three to the Horde. Fortunately, Mermista taught Seahawk how to speak Seagull, and he is able to send word of their plight. The princesses show up and save the day. Mermista finds that she no longer has the blues and is back to her old self. Adora and Glimmer are still on the outs. Meanwhile, Catra finds that Hordak is so excited about his victory that he decides to stay in the field and sends her back to the base. Catra feels unappreciative, but gradually becomes aware that Scorpia has gone her own way. She then sets out to find her. There was quite a bit of action in this episode. A couple of songs got sung, and a good battle. Several characters had either character development or came to realize their inner dissatisfaction. This includes Bo, who is tired of always being the optimist to cheer up the others when they are gloomy. I give this episode a 6. And now, here is my take on the same episode, and I wrote as follows. The episode begins with Hordak and a bunch of Emily-like robots attacking a random village. Seahawk tries to rescue the inhabitants, but Glimmer teleports everyone out to a waiting ship and flees the area. The inhabitants are in shock and tears as they see their village destroyed. Glimmer stares down at Hordak and vows to get him. After the intro ends, the ever-optimistic Bo tried to assure Glimmer that they had captured Double Trouble and that things can be turned around. Bo asks Swiftwind about the Southern Coast situation, and he says that it's on fire. Lots of fire. Glimmer goes off on Adora for staying put as Mermista's kingdom fell. Mermista is shown in a soapy bathtub eating ice cream, one container at a time. Bo is still optimistic, but Glimmer told him off as well. Adora tells her not to talk to Bo like that. Glimmer vows to get even with the Horde and dismisses everyone. Then Seahawk gets the idea of having a boys' night out with Bo and Swiftwind. Bo was hesitant, but he agreed to it. Catra congratulates Hordak on the victory, but he tells her to stay put in the fright zone to her dismay. Catra tells Octavia to give a report on her progress. She also contacts Scorpia, but there's no response. Seahawk, Bo, and Swiftwind goes to a bar and breaks into song about friendship. Seahawk sets up a kidnapping with a guy named Bill in an attempt to get the rebellion back into shape. But they were captured for real by a former friend of Seahawk. It turns out to be this show's version of a guy named Scurvy. They're taken to Scurvy's ship, tied up to a mast. Seahawk tells Swiftwind to try to send a message to Adora, but with no response. Glimmer checks up on Mermista to see if she's okay. Adora was with her, mopping up the bathroom floor with the sword as a mop. Not cool. Mermista sinks into the bathtub as she thinks that Glimmer and Adora would fight again. They do argue, but out of the room. Adora tells Glimmer that everyone needs to work together. Adora couldn't understand why she could hear the ocean. Swiftwind failed to communicate with Adora. It turns out that Seahawk can speak Seagull and communicates with one to send a message to Mermista. Scurvy is upset with Seahawk for setting 3 of his ships on fire and attempts to make Seahawk walk the plank. Bo tries to settle things, but to no avail. Scurvy reties Seahawk to the mast. Bo breaks out into song again, but the others tell him to shut up. Catra tries to communicate with Scorpia again, but there was still no response. Scurvy tells the others that the Horde paid a hefty ransom for them. Seahawk tried to reason with Scurvy, but he couldn't have cared. The Seagull got the message to Mermista. Adora and Glimmer were still at each other's throats. Glimmer blames Adora for Selenius' falling and accuses her of using She-Ra to hit everything in sight. Glimmer even went as far as telling Adora that her mother would still be alive if it weren't for her. That's cold, brah. Mermista tells them that Seahawk and the others were in trouble and she wasn't going to lose anyone else. On the Horde ship, Seahawk asks Octavia what happened to her eye. She tells them that Catra scratched it out when she was 6 and that she would do the same to the others. Bo tells her to do with him what she will, and he doesn't care anymore. Bo realized that being upbeat just doesn't cut it. Just then, Glimmer, Adora, and Mermista appears out of nowhere by magic. Adora becomes She-Ra, and together they all kick the Horde's ass. Mermista breaks out into song as well, but to a rock ballad. She-Ra and Glimmer held hands in solidarity and finished off the Horde. But after the battle ends, they go off into different directions. In the Fright Zone, Catra tries once more to get in touch with Scorpia. She went to her room and saw she wasn't there. Catra reads a note and got upset by it. Glimmer tried to apologize to Adora, but she wouldn't have it. Adora tells Bo that she needs to find out about this weapon Mara spoke of to help turn the tide against the Horde with or without Glimmer's approval. Seahawk and Remista breaks out into song again, but Bo was sad that the best friends squad could be no more. The episode ends on this note. In my opinion, anyone who blames another person for the death of a loved one if it wasn't that person's fault is unforgivable. Adora is hurting now, but it's going to be with her for the rest of her life. Except for the rock ballad, the shanty Seahawk kept singing could have been taken out of the equation. Catra, I believe, now realizes that what she could have had with Scorpia is gone for good. I feel that this episode is the final nail in the new She-Ra's coffin, and I give this episode 3 points. Higher score prevails as always. Unless my junior moderator and you on YouTube give the episode a higher score, we will change it. Therefore, after 8 rounds, the new She-Ra has a score of 122 points, with a minus 38-point differential and just a 2-point margin of error. In a moment, our reviews and scores for episode 35. Because my home office is being repainted at the time of this recording, I will give my review for episode 9 only. I will give you my senior moderator's review and score for this episode next week. And we're calling this episode 35, and round 9 is called Hero. And here is my take on this episode. And I wrote as follows. The episode begins with Madame Razz cleaning up her place, as for some strange reason, she was expecting Adora when it was Mara who came to see her. After the intro ends, Raz said that today was important. Raz then explains that they were going to make a pie together. Raz bounces back to the present and thinks she's still talking to Mara when it was Adora she was talking to. Raz is definitely confused. Raz used a rolling pin like a meat tenderizer to put the pie dough together. I've never made a pie from scratch, but I know that a rolling pin is not used like a meat tenderizer. Swiftwind joins in and tells Adora that he checks up on her from time to time because of her advanced age, which I always find commendable. Raz goes back to Mara's time, to which Mara doesn't know who she is. Raz goes into Mara's ship to look for sugar, for which she tells Raz that the ship is highly classified. Raz beats Lighthope over the head with her broom. Lighthope asks Mara who Raz was. Mara assures Lighthope that Raz means no harm. Mara gives Raz a box of sugar. Raz thanks and kisses Mara on the cheek and tells her that she would be back tomorrow. Lighthope informs Mara that she must report Raz's presence to her superiors. Mara convinces Lighthope not to report it. Mara doesn't know herself just what their presence is there for. Mara can't understand why Raz keeps calling her Adora when Raz bounces back to the present. Without realizing it, Raz goes back to where Mara's ship was. There was a ruin of She-Ra without a head, with vines and plants growing over it. Adora sees scratch marks that Mara apparently made with the sword. Raz picked up another box of sugar that's 1,000 years old. On a personal note, I spend most of my time in the workforce in supermarkets, and I've sold lots of sugar. It has an excellent shelf life, but believe me, I doubt it would be good for 1,000 years after the fact. To get back to the story, Raz is picking berries for the pie in the present when she bounces back to the past where she and Mara is being chased by a giant boar-like creature. Mara becomes her version of She-Ra, and her costume design is far superior to the current She-Ra's design, but nothing beats the design worn by the original She-Ra. She-Ra fights the creature only to get knocked to the ground. She-Ra tries to get out of the way with some gymnastics, but gets hit by the creature again. Raz touches She-Ra's arm, and it causes her to be friendly with animals and started to glow. She pets the creature's snout and reverts back to being Mara and told the creature to be at peace. When Mara touches the ground, it restores the area back to normal. Raz told Mara that She-Ra wasn't a person, but more like a spirit of the planet. Mara was chosen to be She-Ra, but she isn't sure what her people were doing to the planet's magical properties. When Raz bounces back to the present, Adora realizes that Raz's obsession with making a pie is actually helping her to remember what Mara was saying. Raz keeps saying that there's no time. Raz goes back to the past again, where Mara looked injured. Raz still was talking about making a pie. Mara promised Raz that she would come back the next day to help her. Mara is convinced that her people were doing something terrible to the planet. She sticks the sword into the ground and like as if she was going into the Avatar state, she did something to the ground and the surrounding area. She ran back to her ship in tears. Back to the present, Raz tells Adora that she needs to talk with Mara. Adora found a diamond-shaped piece of technology. She put it in the slot, said She-Ra's name, and it goes back to the past. Mara is told by Lighthope that the Heart of Etheria project would be activated to save other worlds from being destroyed. Mara is convinced that Lighthope somehow had changed. Mara put Etheria, its sun, and moons into a Despondo dimension. Returning to the present as Adora sees Mara's hologram, Mara says that she had failed in her mission. She also said that her people were good at first and were there to study the planet's magic. Mara said that Adora would be more powerful as She-Ra than she was. The hologram disappears and Raz sets the pie down onto Mara's chair as the episode ends. In my opinion, this episode was nothing short of fantastic. This series should have been a prequel rather than a poor reboot. Mara was beautiful on the outside and beautiful on the inside, with a good heart and nature. It would have been interesting to see what Mara's life and times were like instead of this rebooted version. This series ruined the legacy that the original She-Ra once had. Her legacy could still live on if us older fans tell our children or younger friends that the original She-Ra was a great source of inspiration and admiration and not just a pretty face. But this episode was great, and I give it the series' first perfect score of 8. I will inform you of what my senior moderator thought of this episode next week once my office has been finished repainting and returned to normal. So after 9 rounds, the new She-Ra has a score of 130 points, with a minus 30-point differential and still with a 2-point margin of error. The next 2 episodes reviewed is indeed critical. The new She-Ra must score all 8s to win. 3 scores of 8 and a 7 will also win. 3 8s and a 6 will result in a tie. But anything less than that, it's over. And until next week, I remain humbly, obediently yours. Goodbye for now.